Hello, my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you my March wrap up. So again, I had to really think what month we were in. The time is going so quickly. I'm sure you're fed up of everybody saying that, but it is. I'm now here to wrap up how my reading went in March, and I was pleasantly surprised. I read 15 books totaling 5,361 pages. So that was a lot of reading, seeing as I thought I was going to be busy. Saying that, I did read one more book than in February, and for the statistically minded people like me, even though I read one more book, I read 4% less pages than in February. So some shorter books, apparently. My ratings went like this. I had one book that I didn't rate, one 1.5 star, one 2 star, 5 3 stars, 3 3.5 stars, 3 4 stars, and 1 5 star. I think I've got that right, which brought my average rating to a 3.3 stars. Definitely, sadly, more in line with how I've been rating books lately. 9 of the books I read were normal full prose with my eyeballs. 5 books were audiobooks, and 1 book was a book written in verse. And then a couple more statistics, because I've made my spreadsheet record these. The average length of the book I was reading was 357 pages, and that meant the average number of pages I read per day was 173. The book that I didn't give a rating was Secrets in the Cellar by John Glatt, and this was an audiobook I listened to. It was true crime about the case of Joseph Fritzl, the Austrian man who was keeping his daughter and his grandchildren / children down in a cellar. It's an absolutely horrific case. It is not for the faint-hearted, and this audiobook I felt did an excellent job of covering the case. It was just a really weird one where I didn't want to say I enjoyed the audiobook. I felt like the narrator was a bit dull, as it sometimes is with true crime. So I didn't actually love the audiobook, but I felt like the book did a great job of covering all of the case. So I just decided not to give it a rating. It didn't feel fair. But a low rating that definitely felt fair was Lies Like Poison by Chelsea Pitcher. I gave this 1.5 stars. I did not like this at all. But I think my main problem was I listened to the audiobook. So this is about Raven, Poppy, Lily, and Belladonna. And all I can tell you is that there is a character called Jack. That is it. That is the most influential thing I took from this. I believe it was a YA mystery thriller. I was not thrilled. I literally don't know. I could read this book again now from the start, and I would not think I'd ever read it before. Apart from the fact Belladonna is quite a interesting name choice. I did read This Lie Will Kill You by Chelsea Pitcher, and I think I gave it 2 stars, maybe 1 star. But I had this one on my shelves. It was lovingly gifted to me by Rebecca. And I just hated it. I just hated it. I was so forgettable. But do I need to read YA mystery thrillers physically? Is that my issue? Can I not do them by audiobook? We will see if I continue reading them, but sadly this one was not too impressive. Another book I very sadly didn't love was Ring by Koji Suzuki. So I'd been reading this since the 9th or 10th of January and only just finished it in March. It took me like 2 months to read. This is a Japanese horror novel, and I was not scared at any point in the whole thing. My main issue with this is I managed to leave it in the middle of the book for 2 months. I did not care enough to finish it. I feel like maybe if I would have sat and read this in one sitting, would it have been better? I'm not sure, but I was just a little bit bored and I wasn't scared, and that's the whole point of a horror. Would be tempted to watch the movie, but I've heard it's not that great either. So into the 3-star books. The first one I have is Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw, which I gave my copy to Victoria because I knew she wanted to read it. But this one, sadly, the story didn't hook me. It was very beautiful. The actual book is beautiful. The way it's written is beautiful. The pages themselves are beautiful. But the story just didn't hook me, and for that reason I gave it 3 stars. I will say what I'm going to do with this wrap up. I'm going to try and talk way more briefly about all of the books because my wrap ups have been getting very long, so I just want to do a quick fire punchy wrap up more than me rabbling on for hours. So the next book I gave 3 stars is Daughter of Chaos by Sarah Rees Brennan, which is from the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina story. And sadly, this was another gift. This came from Emily at Emily Kathleen Reads, and I didn't love it. And I really don't know why I'm struggling with these books. It's just the fact that this one was told so strangely. I won't go too much into the story because it's like a sequel and a prequel to the TV show and whatever, but it felt like it was all told in the past. It would be like, oh yeah, when Harvey did this, I felt this, and now I feel this. But we didn't get the original thing happen. It was so weird. The timeline was odd and the pacing was odd, and for that reason I struggled to enjoy it, but I did give it 3 stars. I like the characters. Again, I don't know if that's just from the TV show, but I did like the characters. I just struggled to get on with the storytelling in this book. Next up, we have Wranglestone by Darren Charlton, which again, 3 stars. Oh, this book. I buddy read it with Claire over at Books and Ink on Instagram, and she really enjoyed it. She gave it 5 stars, absolutely loved it. For me, it was another pacing issue. So I read this whole book in pretty much one sitting, in one night. It flew by. But the issue with that was, as I was reading it, I had to go back and reread pages because I thought I'd missed something. And then on rereading it, I realized I wasn't missing anything. The thing was never said. This is a story, it's a, what it says, part zombie epic, part gay love story. And I can agree with that. Definitely fills that prompt. But I did like the relationships in this book. I did like the idea, but I don't think it was executed that well. And Claire will be screaming at me and throwing things at the computer, the screen, whatever she's watching on. But yeah, just sadly didn't love it, but I liked the premise, so it got 3 stars. Next up, we have Our Chemical Hearts by Crystal Sutherland. This is one of the books I read in my 24-hour readathon that I did with my patrons, and this is about Henry and Grace. Grace comes to school, she looks a little bit different, but Henry's intrigued and he gets to know her more than his fellow classmates, I guess. It says John Green meets Rainbow Rowell in this heartbreaking tale of bittersweet first love, and kind of agree. I do kind of agree. As I said, 3 stars, so I did enjoy this book, but it's just not, it doesn't feel like it works today. It was written in 2016, which I refuse to believe was 6 years ago. So it's not that old, but I just feel like it hasn't stood the test of time. I didn't feel all the emotions I was supposed to feel, but I didn't hate it. So 3 stars. The final 3-star book I have here is We Were Kings by Court Stevens, and this was a book I was sent by Harper 360 YA, so thank you again for that. And I unfortunately missed the release date. This came out in February 15th, and I actually managed to get the audiobook on SCRIBD, which was very convenient. This is another example of, should I be listening to the audiobooks of YA thrillers? I'm not sure. This one I do remember what happened at all points, so I don't feel as guilty, but this is about Frances, or Frankie Quick, who is convicted of murdering her best friend Cora King. We're following our main character Nyla, who her mother is obsessed with the idea of getting Frankie acquitted because she was Frankie's best friend also. She was a sister to Cora, the girl who was murdered. And in this society, we have the accelerated death penalty, which is a system put in place to effectively not waste money in holding people on death row and killing them off in 30 days. As this is put in though, Frankie has been on death row for a while, and like the evidence that she did it is not that strong. So our main character Nyla works with a guy from the island, Sam, to try and get Frankie acquitted. And I did really like this story. I would 100% recommend it. I just feel like it wasn't what I wanted at the exact time I was reading it, if that makes sense. But I did really enjoy it. I would recommend it. It reminds me of kind of the Inheritance games a little bit, kind of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder a tiny bit. So yeah, would definitely recommend this one. Now we have the 3.5-star books, which I have 3 of, which is strange for like such an obscure rating. But the first one is Pages & Co. Tilly and the Book Wanderers by Anna James. I had this book for such a long time because it was really hyped at one point. And another one, I listened to the audiobook rather than read it physically. Is that even true? Yeah, that is true. I definitely listened to the audiobook. But my little cousin has requested it, so I have a Too Lacy, Love Chloe on the inside. But yeah, this is a book following Tilly, who lives in a bookshop Tilly Pages, of course, Pages & Co. That's the name of the bookshop. And she has the ability to travel into stories. So she meets Alice, she meets Anne of Green Gables. There's a pirate on there, can't really remember it all. This was the first book I read this month, but it was absolutely adorable. I gave it 4 stars originally, and then I felt like that just didn't really reflect my enjoyment compared to my other ratings, so I lowered it to a 3.5, and I think my cousin is really gonna love this. Next up, we have Hollow Pike by Juno Dawson, which I buddy read with Emily from Emily Kathleen Reads, who I've already mentioned. This is a YA contemporary story with witches. I feel like the cover, like Where Witchcraft Never Sleeps, I feel like that makes it sound witchier than it is. But I did really enjoy this book so much. It just wasn't that great, if that makes sense. There were a lot of things in this story that bugged me. It felt very old school YA. 2012 was 10 years ago. It fits all the tropes that we would have loved 10 years ago, but it just missed a mark with me a little bit, and I feel like some things really did need a rework, but did enjoy it, had fun with the story, so 3.5 stars. And I love Juno Dawson's work, so I'm going to be picking up more from them in the future. The next book I gave 3.5 stars was Toffee by Sarah Crossan, and now I've said that out loud, I feel like I need to adjust my rating, but we're going to stick with it for now. This was the only book I read in verse. I don't particularly read books in verse, but this was about our main character who had run away from home due to having an abusive father, and she hides in the shed of this little old lady. The little old lady has dementia, so she invites this girl in and thinks that her name is Toffee, and she's kind of hiding in the house while she tries to figure out what she's gonna do. She has no money, no phone, and just trying to find her feet in like a brand new world. I did find it moving. I don't think I was quite emotional at any point, but I did feel emotions during it. The only problem with me is I have not yet worked out how I feel about books in verse, and I just feel like I would have enjoyed it more as a fully written story. I don't think verse really works for me, so I may have to stop doing it, may have to stop reading like that. But 3.5 stars, I did enjoy it. Now on to the 4-star books. We have How to Make Friends with the Dark by Kathleen Glasgow. Wow, I've said that about 6 times at this point. This book I did really enjoy. It was the first one I read on my 24-hour readathon, and it was nothing like I expected. This was a book following a girl whose mother dies, and all of a sudden her mother dies. And the last thing that happened before her mom died is they had a really big argument, and it's a lot of our character coming to terms with the grief and all the different emotions she's feeling about her mom. She didn't have the easiest childhood. She wasn't particularly happy with how she was brought up and her mother's parenting style. So she's harboring like a lot of resentment, but then her mom dies and she is overcome with grief. A lot of the story was about how overcome with grief she was, and I feel like thankfully, due to the fortunate position I'm in where I have never felt those emotions, it didn't quite hurt me as much as I think it could have done. I do think this could be a potentially uplifting / dangerous book for people who have had any experience similar to this, so I'm not sure I would recommend it to everybody. If you're in a position where you can read it, maybe do some research, but yeah, it was very emotional, but didn't completely knock my socks off. Another book I read in the 24-hour readathon, my final one of the 3, no that's a lie, I did these in a different order, but another book from the readathon, 3 of 3, was Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. This is a book with fabulism elements, so it is a contemporary story, but Evie, our main character, gets this gift where she can see the end of a relationship when a couple kiss, and she doesn't really know what to do with her life. She doesn't believe in love because her mom and her dad have split up, but she goes along to a dancing studio and ends up agreeing to take part in a competition with X, and yeah, it is X. It's literally just X. This story I really did like, and I feel like it could have been 5 stars if it was a little bit longer. There was basically nothing to this, and it meant that really big scenes in the story were pretty much one sentence and then cut out. I wanted a bit more depth to this. but I did enjoy it. For 4 stars, for me, it's a really, really good rating. I thought I had another 4-star read then. I don't. This is the last one, and it is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Nobody kill me for not giving this 5 stars. I didn't quite love it as much as a lot of people seem to, but I'm hoping I will love the second and third books. Okay, so I just explained this book in quite a lot of detail and then realised half of what I said may have been spoilers because I read it so quickly I can't remember where things happened. But we're following Pippa, who is doing an end of school project on a murder that happened in her town where she doesn't think the guy who was accused was the guy who did it. That's all I'll say. It's told in a very interesting format because as she's doing her project, Pippa is writing production logs, which I'm trying to find an example for. So we have production logs and we have transcripts of interviews. We also have areas that have text messages and redacted interviews. It's very interactive, but not overwhelmingly interactive. As I said, I didn't love it with my whole heart, but I did give it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. And the final book I have to talk about, my favourite book of the month, which wasn't really a shock to me, was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I gave 5 stars. I really, really loved this book. I was sort of debating whether to give it a 4.5, and then I found myself wishing that a 4.75 rating existed in my rating system, so I just gave it 5. Taylor Jenkins Reid writes in a way that makes me care about things I didn't realise I needed to care about. So this is about the Reaver family. It's about Nina Reaver throwing her end of summer party that she does every year in Malibu in 1983. So we have Nina, who is a talented surfer and supermodel, Jay, who is a championship surfer, Hud is the photographer who photographs him, that's the word, and then the baby sister, Kit. And they have had a very difficult time growing up. But this is all about them gearing up to throw the party, and through that timeline we jump back in and find out about their past. I don't even know what I've been babbling on about with this book, but I will say I liked it more than Daisy Jones and the Six, but I didn't like it as much as Evelyn Hugo. And if that gives you a rating system of how I feel about this book, then there we are. So there we have it. Those are the 15 books that I read in March. Please do let me know if you are throwing things at your screen and are mad at any of my opinions, but also please let me know if you agree with any of them. On that note though, that is all I have time for today, so thank you very much for watching this video. I really do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!